The world thought they already knew everything about Michael Jackson. The moonwalk, the glove, the screaming fans, the endless headlines. But when audiences walked into the theater expecting just another flashy music biopic, many were caught off guard by something far more unsettling and far more human. Because beneath the legendary performances and iconic recreations, the film quietly reveals something deeper. A portrait of a man shaped by pressure, loneliness, obsession, and a lifelong need to escape the child he once was. And most viewers completely miss the details hiding in plain sight. From the very beginning, the movie makes one thing clear. Michael's story did not begin in luxury or superstardom. It began inside a tiny house on Jackson Street in Gary, Indiana. A cramped two-bedroom home packed with children, ambition, and constant pressure. The film carefully recreates the real family home where the Jackson 5 grew up. And it doesn't romanticize it. The stacked three-tier bunk beds, the overcrowded rooms, the lack of privacy. Every detail quietly reminds the audience that this wasn't the glamorous beginning people might expect from the world's future biggest superstar. 6 boys shared one tiny bedroom while the girls slept in the living room. There was barely space to breathe, let alone dream. And yet somehow, inside that chaos, Michael Jackson was created. But the movie quickly shows that the home itself wasn't the only source of pressure. One of the most uncomfortable details appears in the way the children address their father, Joseph Jackson. They call him Joseph, not Dad, not Daddy, just Joseph. It sounds small at first, almost insignificant, until you realize what it says about the emotional distance inside the household. The film subtly captures the cold discipline Joseph reportedly demanded from his children. And then it goes even further by touching on the emotional abuse that haunted Michael for years. One of the hardest scenes to watch is when Joseph mocks Michael's appearance, calling him Big Nose. It's a brief moment, almost casual. But longtime fans immediately recognize how important it really is. Because according to Michael himself, those comments stayed with him forever. The movie doesn't overdramatize it. It doesn't need to. Watching a young Michael absorb those insults in silence says more than any speech ever could. You can almost see the insecurity beginning to form in real time. And suddenly, the later years of plastic surgery, isolation, and self-consciousness feel less mysterious. The film quietly suggests they may have started much earlier than people realize. Another fascinating detail appears during the Jackson 5's earliest performances. Before Motown transformed them into global stars, the brothers were performing songs like Big Boy through smaller labels and local talent circuits. But once Motown entered the picture, the movie shows something incredibly revealing about the music industry. Executives reportedly encouraged Michael to claim he was younger than he actually was because being 8 years old sounded cuter and more marketable than being 10. Again, it seems like a tiny detail. But it reveals something enormous. Michael learned extremely early that image mattered just as much as talent. Maybe even more. He learned that identity could be reshaped, packaged, and sold to the public. And that lesson would follow him for the rest of his life. As the story moves forward, the film begins layering in the people and entertainers who shaped Michael creatively. We see him mesmerized by James Brown, copying his dance moves in front of the television. The famous spins, the dramatic drops, the explosive stage energy. For Michael, this wasn't just admiration. It was study. The film subtly portrays him almost like a sponge, absorbing greatness from everyone around him. There are references to Fred Astaire, whose elegance deeply influenced Michael's movement, and Charlie Chaplin, whose emotional storytelling and loneliness resonated deeply with him. One particularly emotional moment shows Michael singing Smile, the song written by Chaplin that Michael later described as one of his favorites. And when you think about the lyrics of that song, a man smiling through pain, it suddenly feels painfully personal. But perhaps the most revealing sections of the movie involve Michael's obsession with reinvention. Throughout the film, viewers can spot sticky notes and affirmations covering mirrors and walls. Messages about greatness, fame, perfection, destiny. At first glance, it almost looks eccentric. But the deeper meaning is darker. The film suggests Michael wasn't simply dreaming about becoming famous. He was actively trying to transform himself into something larger than human. Someone untouchable. Someone mysterious. One recreated note from the late 1970s becomes especially haunting. Michael reportedly wrote about wanting to stop being Michael Jackson entirely. He wanted a new character. A new image. Someone the world had never seen before. And honestly, that may be one of the most important details in the entire film. Because it reveals that the transformation of Michael Jackson was intentional. The mystery. The silence. The carefully controlled appearances. The refusal to give interviews. The obsession with perfection. None of it happened accidentally. Michael was building a myth. And in the process, he may have slowly erased himself. The movie also brilliantly captures Michael's unusual recording habits. During studio scenes with Quincy Jones, Michael asked for the lights to be dimmed while recording vocals. That detail actually came from real studio sessions. He reportedly wanted darkness so he could focus completely on emotion and sound without distraction. The film also shows him constantly moving while recording, tapping his feet, dancing between takes, feeling every rhythm physically. Even when standing still, Michael Jackson was never truly still. And then comes one of the most heartbreaking moments in the movie. After recreating the legendary Motown 25 performance of Billie Jean, the film shows everyone backstage celebrating. They know history has just been made. The moonwalk has changed pop culture forever. But Michael isn't celebrating. Instead, he's upset over one tiny mistake involving the timing of the performance. It perfectly captures the terrifying perfectionism that followed him his entire life. While the world saw magic, Michael saw flaws. And maybe that's why he kept pushing himself harder and harder long after he had already conquered music. The film also rewards hardcore fans with subtle appearances from the real figures who surrounded Michael throughout his rise. Longtime bodyguard Bill Bray appears. So do legendary collaborators like Bruce Swedian and John Landis. These aren't random cameos. They quietly remind viewers that Michael's world was carefully constructed by a close inner circle that protected both the man and the myth. Then there are the animals. The movie doesn't shy away from Michael's unusual love for exotic pets. Bubbles appears repeatedly alongside snakes, llamas, and other animals that became famous parts of Michael's life. To outsiders, it always looked bizarre. But the film hints at something sadder underneath it all. These animals weren't just publicity stunts. They represented comfort, innocence, escape. In many ways, Michael seemed to connect with animals more easily than with people. And maybe that says everything. One especially impressive detail involves Michael's physical appearance. The makeup department reportedly recreated the small facial mark visible on Michael during the late 1970s and early 1980s, only gradually removing it as the timeline progresses. It's subtle. Most viewers probably never noticed it. But it reflects the movie's deeper mission. Not just recreating famous moments, recreating transformation itself. And then the story takes a darker turn. The Pepsi commercial accident becomes one of the film's most emotionally loaded sequences. Michael's hair catches fire during filming, leaving him with severe burns. But what makes the scene powerful isn't the accident itself. It's what comes after. The film quietly shows Michael visiting other burn victims in the hospital and donating his settlement money to help establish a burn center. It's one of the rare moments where the superstar image completely falls away and the audience sees genuine empathy. At the same time, the movie includes an incredibly chilling detail. Michael initially resists taking pain medication. Knowing how his story ultimately ends, that moment becomes devastating foreshadowing. Because the film isn't just showing the beginning of physical pain. It's showing the beginning of dependency. The beginning of exhaustion. The beginning of a cycle that would eventually consume him. And that's ultimately what makes the movie so fascinating. It doesn't just recreate concerts and headlines. It uses tiny details to slowly build a portrait of someone far more complicated than the media ever allowed him to be. not just a superstar, but a lonely child turned into a global product before he even understood who he was. A perfectionist who could never feel satisfied. A dreamer who spent his entire life trying to escape himself. And by the end of the film, one thing becomes painfully clear. The world spent decades watching Michael Jackson perform. But very few people ever truly saw the man behind the performance.